What's up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Vegas 33. We have Sean Strickland going against Uriah Hall in what was supposed to be a 15-fight slate. We are now down to 13 fights. Maybe we do lose another one or two by the time the fights do start. That typically happens, especially as of late. We've been losing fights left and right. So, still, 13-fight slate, another opportunity to make some money on this card, and as always, I am looking forward to it. No matter how bad the card is, still an opportunity to make some money, so that's something to look forward to for sure. Before we get started into the video, if you guys can leave a like, it does go a long way. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, so you not miss out on all the other content throughout the week. I did post my full card breakdown and prediction video on Tuesday morning, and then I also am going to be going live, as always, on Friday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and then live once again on Saturday, 1 hour prior to when the prelims start. With all that out of the way, I say we get into the fight doesn't go to decision lines here, and these are going to be the fights that I more than likely will be heaviest on in tournaments here. So, taking a look at the first one, we have Orion Cosce going against Philip Rowe. And this is a fight where I do think this fight finishes. You have Cosce, who is 8,800, and Philip Rowe, who is 7,400. It's obviously the most likely fight to finish on the entire card, and for a very good reason. Orion Cosce has a 100% finish rate. He's never won by decision. Same thing with Philip Rowe, a 100% finish rate. Again, has never won by decision. So combined, in their 17 fights, neither guy has ever won a fight by decision, which typically means there's a good chance that this fight is going to finish one way or another. You have Cosce, who's going to have the takedown upside, the control time upside. Philip Rowe definitely can be taken down, but Philip Rowe is somebody that's very tricky on his back. He has a brown belt in BJJ as well. He's able to get reversals and sweeps, so I can definitely see some of those. But overall, I see this fight finishing. I think it's more of a Cosce early or maybe a Rowe late. Rowe is somebody that has pretty good cardio, a very good output as well, and like I said, a very good ground game. So I think it's a very competitive fight. I do think the salaries are quite off, but I also recognize that if Cosce does win, it probably does score very well. And same thing with Rowe. So this is a fight I'm going to be pretty heavy on from both sides. But yeah, I like Rowe as an underdog as well, 7,400. I think there's a ton of value on him there. Sean Strickland going against Uriah Hall. We have Sean Strickland, very expensive, 9,300. Uriah Hall, 6,900. Honestly, I'm more on the Uriah Hall side, especially with this price tag. I don't really, get these prices whatsoever. I do think Sean Strickland's the better fighter. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. But man, Uriah Hall has that X factor, and that X factor is going to be that power. Uriah Hall is dangerous, an 81% finish rate. He's a knockout artist, a 71% knockout rate. So this guy has a ton of power. Sean Strickland has been knocked out before, and you're getting him at 6,900. Like if Uriah Hall wins, it's going to be inside the distance. It's going to be a knockout, and he's going to be on the optimal lineup. So I'd rather go to Uriah Hall, honestly, 6,900. But Sean Strickland, he's going to have 5 rounds to work with. Decent knockout artist himself, 43% by knockout, 17% by submission. A very underrated grappler. I believe he's a brown belt in BJJ. Uriah Hall has been finished 4 times by knockout. So, Sean Strickland, I do think he has some upside in his own right, but 9,300, that is a lot. I do like some other guys more than Sean Strickland, but I do think it's a fine play. And overall, a fight I will be pretty heavy on, as you typically should be in the main event. Next, we have Brian Barbarena going against Jason Witt, and this is a fight that probably should finish as well. You have Brian Barbarena with an 80% finish rate, great finisher, 67% by knockout, 13% by submission, a very underrated submission game, has a couple submissions in the UFC. Jason Witt, 61% finish rate, 44% of that coming by submission. Brian Barbarena has been finished in 3 of his 7 losses, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission. And Jason Witt, this is huge. He's been finished in all of his losses. All 7 losses coming by finish, 5 by knockout, 2 by submission. I think Brian Barbarena is very live for a finish in this fight, but we'll talk about it later in the video where I think Jason Witt's somewhat live in this fight as well. He has a path to victory, a good wrestler, good grappler, and we have seen Brian Barbarena taken down in the past. He was taken down 12 times by Colby Covington, no shame in that, but getting taken down 5 times by Anthony Ivy, there is a little bit of shame in that. So, Jason Witt, he has a path to victory here, but I think the more likely scenario is Brian Barbarena does knock him out. So I will be heavier on Brian here, but, Jason Witt at 6,600, not the worst pump play in the world. All right, next we have a very exciting fight. In my opinion, probably the first or second best fight on this card. I'm really looking forward to this one. You have Trevin Jones, who's been on an absolute roll, going against Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Lawrence is 8,700 and Trevin Jones is 7,500. Ronnie Lawrence reminds me of a Merab Dvalishvili, and that means like when Merab's on the slate, you're going to be targeting him quite a bit because of his takedown upside. Ronnie Lawrence, 12 takedowns on the Contender Series. I believe he had like 9 or 8 takedowns in his UFC debut. This guy goes for takedowns, and he has the gas tank to do so as well. Trevin Jones, he's been finishing. He's been finishing as an underdog. He knocked out Tamir Valiev at a very cheap price. He was a underdog at his next fight after that, got a knockout as well. So yeah, if Jones wins, there's a good chance it's by knockout. I don't see him winning a decision. And if Ronnie Lawrence wins, there's a good chance that it's a ton of takedowns, a ton of control time, maybe a finish himself, but scoring very, very well. So I like both sides here. I'm more so on the Ronnie Lawrence side myself. I think he has, honestly, probably the highest ceiling on the entire slate, and I will be very heavy on Ronnie Lawrence. But, Jones has been getting it done. He's been getting it done as a dog. He's shown a ton of power, so you definitely can't count him out as well. Getting into the core plays, Rafa Garcia going against Chris Gruetzemacher. Rafa Garcia, he is going to be 9,500, and I know what you're thinking. It's probably, looking like he's a little bit too expensive, but on this slate, it really doesn't matter. You can pretty much build any lineup you want. There's a ton of live dogs, ton of pump plays that are very cheap. So when I was, messing around building lineups, I had no problem at all fitting, guys like Rafa Garcia in there, fitting guys like Sean Strickland, Brian Barbarena. And Garcia, I think he has very high upside here. He's going to have some wrestling upside as well. Chris Gruetzemacher does have like a 61% takedown defense. He does struggle with getting taken down. He does struggle with getting submitted as well. And something to note is Chris Gruetzemacher has been finished in all 4 of his losses, 3 coming by submission, and Garcia has finished over half his wins by submission, 58% submission rate. So I think Garcia is going to be better, honestly, pretty much everywhere. I think the striking is going to be somewhat close, but man, Chris Gruetzemacher looked horrible in his return against Alexander Hernandez. He came off like a 2 or 3 year layoff, and he looked like absolute crap in that fight. Garcia, he's up-and-comer, 26 years old, very young, a very good skill set, very good wrestler, grappler, great striking as well, very well-rounded, and I think there's a very good chance that Rafa Garcia does take down Gruetzemacher, and he does submit him at some point in this fight. So 9,500, takedown upside, control time upside, and a finish upside as well. I do like Rafa Garcia quite a bit. Getting to the next core play here, Ronnie Lawrence, yeah, I love this guy on DraftKings. I mean, it's going to be so hard not to put this guy in your lineup. I mean, he's going to put up some serious numbers. Trevin Jones, he is a black belt in BJJ. That is something to mention, but, Trevin Jones can be taken down. I have seen him stuck on his back, and Ronnie Lawrence is absolutely relentless with the takedowns. He goes for him, and he goes for a ton of them. That's what you want on DraftKings. You want somebody to go out there like a Merab Dvalishvili and get you as many takedowns as possible. So Ronnie Lawrence might honestly be my highest exposed fighter on the entire card, just because I think he has the best ceiling out of anybody. His opponent, Trevin Jones, like I said, I will be sprinkling him in as well, as he has been surprising a lot of people, getting that knockout. But you kind of take a look at Trevin Jones in his career. He only has like 3 or 4 knockout wins, which is weird because we think of him as like some knockout artist. But prior to the UFC, he wasn't really knocking out anybody. But he has shown some power as of late. Ronnie Lawrence gets knocked out here, but if he does not get knocked out, he's going to score very, very well. Ronnie Lawrence never knocked out, his only decision loss. Only has a decision loss. So yeah, I like Ronnie Lawrence quite a bit, and he will be probably my highest exposed fighter on the entire slate. Uriah Hall, core play here, just because of the price. I mean, $6,900 for a guy that if he wins, it's no debate about it. It's going to be on the optimal lineup, whether it is a first round, second round, third round, even like a 4th round knockout. At this price, $6,900, there's a very good chance that it is on the optimal lineup here. I think this fight should be lined a lot closer. Strickland, like I said earlier, I think he's the better fighter. I think he's a better striker. I think he's the better wrestler, the better grappler. I think he's better everywhere, to be honest, outside of the power. And that's what Uriah Hall has. He has a ton of power, and he's going to be very live for a knockout. He's going to have 5 rounds to do it. We have seen Strickland knocked out before. At that price, $6,900, I'm willing to take a lot of shots. Sean Strickland is just very expensive, $9,300. Honestly, I like Garcia more. Like Barbarena slightly more. I mean, Strickland's not a terrible play by any means, but I'd rather go down and get Uriah Hall, $6,900. I think there's a ton of upside there and a ton of value to go with it as well. And it allows you to go up and get your Ronnie Lawrences. It allows you to go up and get your Rafa Garcias, guys like that. So I do like Uriah Hall quite a bit, just for the price and for the upside there. Nico Montano, 9,100. A little bit of a weird play here, but I think it's a very good matchup for her and a very good matchup to score well on DK here. So Nico Montano, she's a very good wrestler, able to get it down to the mat, and a very good grappler as well. She does average 2.25 takedowns per 15 minutes with a very good 54% accuracy. We have seen Wu Yanan taken down multiple times. Gina Mazzani was able to take her down like 5 times, control her for the majority of that fight. And I think Montano can do pretty much the same thing, take her down multiple times, lots of control time, possible finish as well. At 9,100, I say she doesn't have the highest ceiling in the world. This is going to be more of a cash play for me. I don't know how much I'm going to get there in tournaments, but in tournaments, she probably is going to be very low owned. So I do have some interest in that aspect, but there's a really good chance that I will have Montano in cash. I think she's a pretty good play to win here and a pretty good play to go in there, get takedowns, get control time, and score decent. I don't think she has like a crazy 100-point ceiling, but I think she can, score 90, 95 points in a win. So kind of more of a cash game play for me, single entry. In tournaments, I'll go there a little bit, but I do think there's some fighters with some higher upside, like a Brian Barbarena, like a Rafa Garcia, even like a Sean Strickland. But I think Montano is a nice, safe play there for cash games. All right, getting into the GPP plays here, tournament plays. Orion Cosce, 8,800. If he wins, he's going to score very well. Rowe, he has been knocked out before. He was knocked out in his MMA debut. Other than that, he has 2 decision losses. He does get hurt in a lot of fights, but he has great recoverability. And if Cosce is going to win, it's going to be probably a knockout. This guy puts everything into his shots. He has very good ground and pound as well. He's 8,800. He has takedown upside, control time upside. Philip Rowe is like a 25% takedown defense. So the path to victory for Orion Cosce to score well is definitely there. I'm more on the Philip Rowe side, but I can also see that if Cosce does win, it's going to score a ton of DraftKings points. I think it's going to be a very high-paced fight, and if he does win, it's going to score really well. So I do like Cosce as more of like a tournament play. Probably wouldn't go there in cash games. Brian Barbarena, 9,600. Very, very steep price here, but like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter about the price tag, in my opinion, this week. You can pretty much play anybody you want. And, it's really hard to project a 60-second knockout and all, but if anybody on the slate's going to do it, it's going to be Brian Barbarena. Jason Witt has one of the worst chins, if not the worst chin in the UFC. He's been finished in 100% of his losses, 7 finished losses, 5 by knockout, 2 by sub. He's been finished in the first round in 2 out of his 3 UFC fights. So I think Brian Barbarena has a very good chance of getting a knockout and a very good chance of getting a knockout in the first round. So 9,600, I feel like it's going to scare a lot of people away, but he has a first round knockout upside. He honestly has like a 60-second knockout upside as well. So although I do like Rafa Garcia a little bit more, especially in terms of cash. But Brian Barbarena, I think he's a good upside play, a good tournament play there, although he is a crazy, crazy 9,600. Typically you'll see like Amanda Nunes 9,600, Chris Cyborg, they used to put her at 9,600 a lot, John Jones, fighters like that. We don't see like a Brian Barbarena at 9,600, but it's just one of those slates, and, I think he has a very good chance of knocking out Jason Witt in the first round. Sean Strickland, 9,300. 5 rounds to work with, decent finisher himself. Uriah Hall has been actually finished 4 times by knockout. So what I like about Strickland is very high volume. If he does choose to go that grappling game, I think he can have a lot of success there as well. He averages about a takedown per 15 minutes. Since he has returned from the injury, only 1 takedown attempt in 3 fights. If he does go for takedowns here, I do think that'll add up, especially 5 rounds here. I do think he'll have success. It's just he seems like he wants to stand and bang, which you probably don't want to do that against Uriah Hall, but he's going to have 5 rounds to work with. He's 5 rounds of volume, possible knockout upside as well for Strickland. He's not a terrible play. I do like Barbarena and Rafa Garcia more personally, but Strickland's not a terrible play nonetheless. I do think he can score pretty well, whether it does go all 5 rounds or does finish like I do think it will. Ryan Benoit, 8,300. The big thing I want to point out here is going to be the finish rate of Ryan Benoit. Ryan Benoit, a flyweight with a 90% finish rate, 80% by knockout, 10% by submission. I believe he was a state champion in wrestling, and a brown belt in BJJ as well. This guy's a great grappler, just does not use it as much as he should. But in this fight, I think he has a serious, clear path to victory of taking down Zaruk Adeshev and submitting him. Zaruk Adeshev has been finished in 2 of his 3 losses, 1 by submission, 1 by knockout. I think Benoit is live for either of those. If Benoit does choose to go to the ground game, I think he'll have a ton of success. Even on the feet, I think he can knock out Zaruk Adeshev here. Ryan Benoit for a flyweight, this guy hits like an absolute truck. He was hitting Tim Elliott with some shots that, most flyweights would not be able to take. Tim Elliott's not human. He has an unreal chin. I don't believe Tim Elliott has ever been knocked out, maybe once in his career. But yeah, Tim Elliott's chin's very good. I don't think Zaruk Adeshev's chin is as good as Tim Elliott. And man, Benoit was hitting with some nice knees, some really hard shots that I don't think Zaruk's going to be able to take. But yeah, 8,300, I like it. I think he has takedown upside if he does choose to go there, submission upside, and finish upside in general, and I think it'll be pretty low owned as well. So yeah, I like Ryan Benoit, 8,300. Melsik Bagdasaryan, he's going to be 8,600. And yeah, I like Bagdasarian here quite a bit. This guy is legit. 80% finish rate, 80% by knockout. This guy hits very, very hard. He goes after it. He fights for your money. On the Contender Series, he went out there like a madman trying to get that 60-second finish, and he almost got it as well. This guy hits like a truck, but his opponent was able to weather the storm and take him into deeper waters. He did slow down as the fight went on in the Contender Series fight, but he was still able to out-volume his opponent. This is a fight that I really do want to target from both sides. I think Melsik is very live for a knockout. Colin England, he's never been knocked out in his career, but he's also never faced somebody like Melsik. I think Melsik is a very, very good striker, a ton of power. And you take a look, prior to the UFC, he finished 4 of his wins. I think they combined for like 62, 63 seconds. So he's getting early finishes. So another guy that honestly is probably live for that 60-second win bonus, because if England does stand with Bagdasarian for any periods of time, he's going to be in big trouble in my opinion. Although England's not a terrible striker, you do not want to strike with Melsik. So I like Melsik. Tournament play, 8,600. I don't hate it whatsoever. All right, and then we're going to get to the live dogs here. We have Phil Rowe, 7,400. He's going to have a 9.5-inch reach advantage. He's going to have the cardio advantage. He's going to have the volume advantage. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the better grappler. The only disadvantage I will give him is probably the durability and probably the power disadvantage as well. I think Cosce is going to have the power advantage and probably the durability advantage as well. We have seen Rowe hurt quite a bit. But, Cosce is going to take down Rowe. He's going to have to. With a 9.5-inch reach disadvantage, he's going to have to take down Rowe. And Rowe is very comfortable off his back. Like I mentioned earlier, he's training with guys like Rodolfo Vieira, guys like Gerald Mearshart. He's a brown belt in BJJ, very good off the mat or on the mat. I've seen him get multiple reversals and sweeps, so I think those can add up as well. He got 2 against Gabe Green. He got 1 on the Contender Series as well. He's very active off his back as well, throws up submissions. He does have a 57% submission rate, so multiple submissions on his record. And Cosce, this is going to be the best guy Cosce's ever fought. This can definitely be the best guy Cosce's ever fought. And I like Rowe here. I like Rowe. I like the value, 7,400. I think he's a lot of upside. 100% finish rate. I kind of see a late finish. I don't think Cosce is going to keep up with the pace of Philip Rowe here, and I think Philip Rowe does finish him late after getting a ton of volume worked in. But yeah, 7,400, I like it quite a bit. Trevin Jones, 7,500. Got to play him. You got to play some of them. I'm going to have a ton of Lawrence, but, Jones, if he does win, it's probably going to be by knockout. But like I mentioned earlier, you look through his record, only a 23% knockout rate, 31% by submission for only a 53% finish rate. I know we look at him as like some murderous power puncher, and it sure does look like it, but it's kind of weird seeing him only have like 3 or 4 knockouts in his career. But, he's been knocking guys out. He's been knocking guys out as an underdog. And if he does win here, it's probably a knockout as well, maybe a submission. So, yeah, Trevin Jones, I think he has finish upside. I don't really see him winning a decision against Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Lawrence is probably going to be my most highly owned player or fighter. But I will have some Trevin Jones just in case Trevin Jones is able to find the chin of Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Yaya, 7,700. Very interesting, weird fight going against Kong here, who Kong typically wants to get the fight down to the mat. Kong's a very good wrestler, a very good grappler in his own right. It's just, you really don't want to grapple with somebody like Ronnie Yaya, and I kind of have a feeling that Kong's going to get this fight down to the mat, which he definitely can. Ronnie Yaya has like a 25% takedown defense, or if Yaya can even get this fight down to the mat himself, he could be very live for a submission. Ronnie Yaya, a 77 or 78% finish rate, all 78% coming by submission. This guy, he gets submissions. We have seen Kong submitted before. It was a while ago, but he was submitted nonetheless. And if he goes to the ground with Yaya, he could be put in some very bad spots and possibly submitted. So I think Ronnie Yaya is an interesting play. If he does win, there's a very good chance it is by submission. And yeah, I don't hate it. 7,700 there. And then Colin England, 7,600. This guy is going to have takedown upside and a lot of it. If I was Colin England, I'd go in here and I'd shoot a takedown right away. I don't think he wants to stand with Melsik Bagdasarian. And not saying England's a terrible striker, but Bagdasarian striking is legit. It's next level. And England's a solid wrestler. He's able to get it down to the mat. Bagdasarian was taken down 2 times in the Contender Series. I think England's going to have to take him down to potentially win this fight. And if he does it probably scores decent. 7,600, I think it's a decent dog play here. Because if Bagdasarian does not get a knockout, or if England does, take him down multiple times, I think England can definitely win a decision, rack up control time. He's going to have the cardio advantage, the wrestling advantage, the grappling advantage. Just a big striking disadvantage in my opinion. So England has the path to victory to score pretty well. So I will take definitely a nice look at him as a live dog. Pump plays Jason Witt, 6,600. If he wins, it probably honestly scores good, but it's a kind of a big if. The guy has a terrible chin, But Bryan Barbarena coming off of a pretty serious surgery. Bryan Barbarena, coming off of a ton of wars throughout his career. But, honestly, like even the worst version of Bryan Barbarena should beat Jason Witt. It's just Jason Witt does have a path to victory, and that is getting the fight down to the mat. He has solid wrestling, solid grappling as well, training out of Glory MMA and Fitness with James Krause. So you got to imagine he comes in here with a good game plan. But I personally see Barbarena catching his shin at some point. But if not, like Witt could very well win this fight. He could very well win it with the wrestling, the grappling. Takedowns, control time, it probably scores good, and nobody probably has Jason Witt on their roster. So I like Jason Witt as a pump play, not a terrible look. He probably gets knocked out, but it is something to definitely consider. Fade Cheyenne Bays 8900, no thank you. I would rather play anybody else on the card besides Cheyenne Bays 8900. I mean, there's so many better options up there in that price range. If she does win, she's not a finisher, like a 20% finish rate. Maybe she does get takedowns, control time, but even then, like it's not going to score well. And honestly, I'm actually picking her to lose as well. So even more reason that I don't want to play her. So I will say she's going to be very low owned, but probably for a very good reason. I do like other fighters on the slate, and I will not be having much, if any, Cheyenne Bays this week. So that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys can leave a like, also subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. That'd be much, much appreciated. I will see you Friday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. For the after weigh-in live stream. So that's about it, guys, and good luck for UFC Vegas 33. Let's make some money. See you guys.